Maybe Matthew can help me.
Or we can just pass this around the table.
Uh,
Do we need to
well,
standing for responses?
No, you can, whatever you're comfortable. I don't know if that mic's on, so test it. I didn't want to get too close. There it is.
It sounds like it's on.
All right.
There's no on button, so.
Okay.
Testing.
So,
1, 2, 3.
all right. So
All right, it works.
okay.
It works.
So, here we go. Here we go, Larry. First of all, before I start, just a second, Larry, and I will get to your question first, but I just wanted you to kind of introduce yourself again for those that haven't been here, and just give an overview, if you would.
So my name's Matt Sidley. I normally go by Matt, not by Matthew. My mother calls me Matthew, and strangely, one of my friends from college still calls me Matthew. Like, there's only two people that normally call me Matthew. It's my wife, Emily, and then we have Daniel here on Mommy's lap, Joshua and Rebecca, and Alyssa? No, Bethany. Bethany? Am I right? Okay, just checking. She's with us today as well up front to answer any of all questions you wish to ask her. Oh, all right, thank you, son. We've lived in Washington now for 10-ish years. We felt the Lord calling us to move this direction from California. Back when I was a middle school intern working at the church that I had grown up at. And we felt the Lord calling us to move this way, and we didn't know exactly what for or to where, so we moved to Bremerton, signed a short lease, and then ended up down in Lacey with Life Point Church, where we've been for the last 10 years and a part of the ministry there in all aspects of a church plant. Because it was very new when we came, and we met in a high school, and now we have a building and facilities and all those things, and so that's where we've been the last few years. And for me, it was 2 years ago. Actually, it was 2 years ago this time. We were in Florida at a church planters assessment through the denomination. We felt the Lord getting us ready. Like, you need to get ready. There's something that's going to be happening for you guys to be doing. So we went to the church planters assessment, and they said, no, we don't think you'd make a good church planter, because we lack one of the building blocks that they're looking for in a church planter, and that is the entrepreneurial spirit. And they were like, Matt, you would have a difficult time creating things from nothing. You'd do better with a structure, and we'd recommend you to be a pastor now at one of our churches. We want you to be a pastor. It's like, oh, okay. And then COVID happened, kind of shut some things down. Things did weird. Are you choking, son? Okay. No, you fine? Okay, he's good. And so things kind of got shut down, and we were looking around, still waiting. There was an option where the denomination was like, would you be interested in planting a church if you didn't have to plant a church? And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about, but we'd be open to talking. We're open to talking to anyone. And then Nate Hettinga, he was visiting our church for, we had our opening, our building opening ceremony. And he mentioned that there were 12 churches in the district that didn't have pastors. And that's why I called him and I said, Nate, how do I talk to these churches? Because I want to talk to them and see where they're at and what they're looking for, what they're interested in. Because we're ready. We're ready to talk. We want to move. We're ready to move. So here we are. That is a quick, short nutshell. And question-wise, you can ask whatever you want. We were known as the king and queen of TMI in our small group ever since we've lived in Washington. People ask questions, we're going to give you the full, real answer. And so if you ask a question, be ready for the answer. We will answer it.
And your current church is affiliated with Converge,
yes,
is that correct?
That's correct. It is affiliated with Converge.
Okay, here you go, Larry. As I promised, here you go.
Yes, Matt. I'm glad to see you guys here. Anyway, what do you feel about videoing of services, and how comfortable are you with video and online?
Oh, yeah, our online presence, what COVID taught everyone is we have to have a presence online. I know a lot of churches, the churches that I grew up for a long time, when I was younger, didn't want to be online or live streamed because they didn't want to give that venue or that opportunity for people to be like, well, I'm not going to come in person, I'm just going to watch online. And that's where ideally I don't want people to choosing that to be like, hey, I just want to watch online rather than come in person. But there are, as we've learned now, there are circumstances when sometimes you just can't make it. Health reasons, concerns, things like that. Like online is not a replacement for meeting together, but yeah, I'm definitely in favor of live streaming it to YouTube, Facebook, wherever we can, Twitch, I don't care. We'll stream it wherever we can and have it out there for people to see. So.
What about memes? Are you okay with memes? Because I got one here, and we should send this out to the church.
I'm okay with memes.
Well, did you see this one?
No, what is this
Okay, well, this is pretty incredible. I feel very honored.
We're very comfortable with memes.
Is there anybody else that hasn't seen
Who's
it?
in charge of the Facebook page?
It's here for you. Okay, here we go.
Post it, post it, post it, post it.
I absolutely love my position. I'll just carry it around to church, to table. Okay, now that we got that out of the way, much easier on a Saturday than a Sunday. And as my wife reminded me, you put that elf away for a year. So, yeah. So, all right. Okay.
Could you just give us a little bit of your history of service within the church, like some of your experiences and positions throughout the church?
I was about to say, the only official titles that I've held is I was the student ministries coordinator when we came here to Life Point. So we started a youth group from nothing and started it. We met in homes. We saw it grow to about, I'd say 20 at its highest. Like you said. And, creating that was kind of our biggest piece in an official role. I came from I was a middle school intern for a church where I was an intern for a group of 300 middle schoolers. It was very large, and from that I did a lot of coordinating events, coordinating and contacting parents, preaching occasionally type thing during that, but a lot of it was back-end stuff, because that's one of the things they identify with me quickly. They were like, Matt, you'll enjoy preaching, but in ministry, it's these things over here on the back end that you're going to hate, and so we're going to introduce you to those things. To help get you a little bit more comfortable and a little more acclimated to them. So I did a lot of those for 3 years. And that's where I go. So those have been the official capacities. Lately here, Jim Hayes, who's the senior pastor at Life Point Church where we attend currently, he's been gracious with me in sharing the pulpit. So a lot of my primary service right now at our current church is I lead a life group. And one of the things that's very important to me is having small groups where you get to know people. Because even here, this is a large group. It's hard to know all the people that are in this room. But like when you're in a small group and you get to know people and share life together and what's going on day to day and meeting midweek, like that's important. And encouraging people to be, involved in some way. At least, we used to always say that we want you doing at least one thing. Like the church can ask you to do so many things, right? We want you to at least be doing one thing and doing that wholeheartedly. So leading life groups was important. I was working on some curriculum for leading our life group leaders here towards the end of my time there, just to kind of get that in place, because we didn't have anything officially in place, so that was kind of my last project that I was working on there. But Jim's been gracious with meeting with me and kind of teaching me the ways, like knowing that this would be an eventuality. And he's since asked, can we still meet and hang out? And it's like, absolutely. So, but yeah.
I thought a member of the church team not supposed to ask today. We have 2 chances to interrogate him and Emily already, so we just zip them out today. I think after you answer the question, we would like to hear from Emily too.
Is it the same question then? Yeah, so I haven't had any official ministry work, but I have been very involved.
3 children.
Yes, we have 3 children. But I have been very involved. When Matt was leading the youth, I was involved with that as well. We both did it together. He was the lead, but I would support him and, get to know the youth and hang out with them as well. I've served in a lot of capacities in our church. I served on our children's ministry leadership team for a while. I did a lot of administrative stuff for them. I'd help greet new families and show them where to go and kind of coordinate things like that. And I helped with, so my professional background, I do a lot of marketing, and so I'm involved in the communications world, and so I used a lot of those skills. I've helped our church with Facebook advertising for an Advent series or Christmas series that they've been doing, and Easter, or offering advice when the associate pastor was working on building out their website. I'd offer some suggestions for him. And currently, at the moment, I'm helping more with our MOPS group. Someone else is leading it, but I promote what's coming up and create the little Facebook slides. So it's kind of looking for ways that I can use my skills to help support how I can. So, yeah.
Thank you. Pat.
Matt, what do you feel are your gifts?
I feel that the Lord has gifted me in leadership and teaching. I enjoy teaching. Pastoring, I like to coach people. I'm not someone that likes to yell and scream in people's faces. I don't deal well with that, so I like to come alongside people with suggestions. Son. Right. Thank you. I don't know if sense of humor counts as a gift or spiritual gift, but it's one of those things. Humor is my natural default state. This is just TMI. I was instructed by our group to basically I had to pick out. They gave me the responsibility of picking out a card to give to a woman who. There was a couple that had confessed to us that there was some sexual sin going on. And they were like, Matt, we want you to pick out a card, because we had talked to the gentleman, and he confessed to us and was like, hey, this is what's going on. Matt, we want you to pick out a card to give to her, so that way we can all sign it and write a little note, let her know that we still love her. And I'm like, where do you pick out this card at Target? And so my sense of humor naturally came out, and then it got vetoed, and we just made one by hand. But sense of humor is where kind of the default state that I go. That is a giftedness. There's things that are serious in life, but there are things that are just not as serious. Son, can you see? But yeah, leadership and teaching, I'd say, are two of the biggest one. And with that, just talking about coaching, I'd say also with shepherding, and that's one of those things where everywhere we've gone with our small groups and leading, I've seen them all involved in flourishing in ministry, and some of them make decisions and they move and they go to other churches and they're still involved there, and that's where I go. I think that's probably one of the strengths. Also counseling. Now that I think about it, it's one of those ones where I even got a call a couple months ago from a guy that now lives in Georgia, who I haven't talked to in 5 years, because he had a question, and I was who he thought of that he wanted to ask this question, just from conversations that we'd had before. Son, I know you're excited.
Okay. You can be the first to raise your hand. Okay, we got another question over here.
May I ask Joshua a question and maybe a follow-up question too? Joshua? Yes. Do you eat cookies?
Yes.
What's your favorite cookie?
You gotta use the microphone. You gotta use the microphone.
Chocolate chip.
Good choice. Good choice. Thank you. How about the other two? Rebecca?
My favorite type of cookie is M&M cookies.
Now, I could really relate to you because I could see you had to think hard about it.
White chocolate macadamia nut.
Do you have a favorite kind of cookie?
Daniel, do you have a favorite cookie?
Do you have a favorite kind of cookie? Are you feeling shy?
Okay.
He's shy.
Thank you.
Did you want to say something else?
Was there a question over here? I thought I saw a hand. Yes. I'm going to sniff out those hands.
Okay, the wording of this question, yes, so important. Not being a full-time pastor yet, and you probably observed, you've been under the tutelage of a pastor. I just wondered, we've had pastors that have had different opinions of this particular issue. The question being is, how is a pastor's time allocated? Just as an emphasis, we had one pastor who locked himself into the study for 4 hours every day. That was it. That was it. His wife is a secretary and says, there's a call for him. Nope, forget it. He's studying. Another pastor who told me, I'm self-employed. We never knew where he was. And how about days off, too?
Yeah.
We're going to have days off.
This was a question, too, I asked myself, because I go, the pastor works on Sunday. Like, what does the rest of your work week really look like? And I was meeting with Jim and asking him about that. Like, what does your work week look like now for you regularly? What did it look like, if you can remember back then? And, just to kind of glean from his experiences, and that's where I go, I would ideally, and that's where I go, let's assume that this is a 40-hour work week, right? Which is most likely not going to officially happen. And that's where I go, normally I'd want to be spending about at least 15 hours a week on sermon preparation specifically, is kind of a ballpark figure of about how much time during the week it would take for preparing on a weekly basis. The rest of that time, during the week, I want to be meeting with people, and I can coordinating what we need to do for ministry opportunities, whether that's starting children's ministry or, starting, getting the clothing drive, that stuff started up. I'm meeting with people on those things, and right now wearing lots of hats. If that means I have to be cleaning some facilities at the same time, right? I'll be doing that. On the weekends, it's kind of, so I've been debating, the wisdom that, people have said, take Monday off or take Friday off. It's like I kind of see both. I think right now I'm leaning towards more of having a Friday off at this point type thing. And that's one of those things that, on that day for, burnout's sake and all those things, that want that to be a respected day that Matt is gone. Like emergencies, please contact, but on Fridays, nothing serious. You can call me if you want to go to the movies or something. But then on the weekends, that time I see more as the opportunities too for on Saturdays and meeting with people and socializing. Because one of the things that I wanted to get to do, off the bat, is I want to get to know each and every one of you and schedule times where I can get to meet you, or Emily and I can come together and get to meet you guys. Just because that's one of the things where we want to get to know the flock that God has placed here at McMicken. And so Saturdays and Sundays after church, I see those kind of more, the weekends more of some social times of getting to meet you guys and interact with you guys and go to some soccer games and being invested in your kids' lives, and, things of those nature. So that's kind of how I see it, and I know it's going to be fluid at the beginning, but I don't envision myself being a closed door. The sermon this week was prepared with very much people bubbling around and jumping over me where I'm trying to read, and and write some things down. So I'm used to interruptions. So.
Okay, I have no competition with the heater. Next, anybody? Okay, here you go.
Thank you for holding us up.
This is another thing, is wide open question, kind of and what do I mean by doctrines? I says, is there any specific doctrine that you feel important and would be a essential doctrine? Now, when I say doctrine, I know don't ask me to explain that. So, but certain emphasis and importance of, I mean, not the Calvinist and the Armenian stuff, maybe. But,
and that's where I go. Jesus Christ is the only way, is the first and foremost one that comes to my mind as you ask that question. So, And that's where I go, with that one. In our day, in our society, there's a lot of people that know, I just be a good person, I can just do this, or let me believe what I want to believe in my truth. And that's where I go, Jesus is the only way to salvation through Jesus Christ. It's the only way. That's the first one that comes to mind. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. It's one of those things that it's the next one that comes to my heart and mind, because I go, Jesus says that this sums up the law and the prophets. Like these are the primary pieces. And that's where I go, we can find ourselves with a lot of head knowledge, but if we don't have kind of that heart implementation, we're not going to be effective. We're not going to be useful. And that's where I go, it's important to know Scripture and know God's Word. And that's where I go, my upbringing at the church that I grew up at, I did a very, very good job of teaching me the Scriptures and how to correctly handle the word of truth. And it's one of the things, but those would be, I'd say, the biggest pieces that if we learn to do those well, that we'll hear about often, are the first ones that come to mind. If I think of another one, though, Larry, I will come back to that one. But yes, because that the doctrine's a big one. I'll say Sammy grilled me on a couple of those other questions already, that you were talking about.
I can go table by table. Oh, here we go.
Now you said Jesus is the only way, and everybody here believes that. Could you and Emily both please just share a little of your testimony of when you actually came to that point?
Oh, yes. I grew up in the church, I prayed the prayer, when I was younger than I can remember. And that's where I go. And so for me, it really didn't mean a whole lot. At the time I did, I was just trying to be a good kid not because of what Jesus had done for me, but because I don't like punishment. And I didn't like to get in trouble. I don't want to get in trouble. And then life is easier when I don't get in trouble. But for me, it wasn't until middle school. It wasn't until I was, 12, 13 years old that it was the Lord was just wait, I should be good, not because I want to be good, but I should be good because I'm becoming more and more like my Savior. And so for me, that's when I ended up being baptized as well. Was during that time of transformation that that He is Lord of my life, and that it doesn't matter what I do or who I am. Those things doesn't matter what He has done for me, and me living in light of that. So for me, that was middle school years. And then just kind of with the overall testimony, it wasn't until, so I mentioned I grew up with it. Son, do not put your crayon in that water bottle, please. Thank you. For me, it was I grew up with a church that I felt did a really good job of teaching me God's Word. But one of the things that I missed through that time was His heart for people and how much He wants people and how much He wants people that I don't even want to hang out with. And that's one of those times where I learned that when I lived in San Francisco in college and being involved in city team ministries and hanging out with addicts, and they're recovering from all sorts of things. And just, all the people that you come across in San Francisco that you've written off and you go, you have no place in the church, as a reminder that God, He's I want all these people. We'll pursue all of them. None of them are beyond the reach of my grace. And don't try to push them outside of it, because you can't.
Well, I grew up in a Christian home as well. And, I grew up knowing Jesus for as long as I can remember. I can't think of a specific praying the prayer moment, but I would say that my faith really became my own probably in junior high, middle school, around that time. The church I went to did a good job teaching the heart for loving people, but not as well on the Scriptures. But my mom supplemented a lot of that, and there was a camp that I grew up going to every summer that did a really great job of that as well, that I felt really helped with my spiritual development. And the first time I was really challenged on it, though, was in college when, I wasn't really active in a church. It was, my first time away from home, living on my own, and I still believed that Jesus was the way, but, you don't really have your parents guiding you to follow those habits. And I went to PLU, and so I took a New Testament class, and I remember the professor saying, we can't believe anything that's in here because Greek is so hard to translate from. And I remember thinking, oh, what? And I remember thinking during that class, you know what? I'm just going to believe it. I'm just just going to believe it. And since then, God has shown multiple ways that we can believe his word. And there were a few moments in college where I remember being confronted and not really knowing the answer, just saying, you know what, I've seen God work in my life, I'm just going to believe it. And then months later, years later even, he would provide the answers. So that's really, I think that's when my faith was really challenged the most. But it also really, became even clearer that it was my faith and that I wanted to make sure that I was making choices to reflect that faith too. So, yeah.
Do I need to put somebody on the spot? I'll start in back. You've been with this church a long time. Here you go, Jesse.
Emily, how does he like his coffee?
So that it doesn't taste like coffee. Most like a shake with a teeny tiny bit of caffeine, maybe. But he's not a coffee drinker.
Whoa. Hold on. While I got it.
I need...
Same question?
No.
Oh,
no.
dang it. I was ready. She likes
Well, since you know the answer, what is the answer?
Now I say a chai. No, shoot, dang it, it's escaping me. No one helping me. Because I tried a sip of it once. I was like, this is actually pretty good. I could drink this too. It was a mocha latte with oat milk and extra chocolate. That's right, and only one shot of espresso. That way, there's less coffee. Sorry. Yeah, sorry, but you had a secondary question.
Second question is still for Emily.
Okay.
Give it back.
How often does he speed on the freeway?
Well, it kind of depends on where we're going and if we're running late. No, he's, growing up in California, we both had some heavy feet. But since moving up here, we've learned to slow down a little bit because people just don't go as fast as they do in the Bay Area. Yeah. So.
And no, this one's for him.
Oh, I was going to say, according to Rebecca, he's sped twice.
Okay. Okay. Between you two, who drives the safest?
I'm gonna say that I drive the safest, and for two reasons. I will say one, while I was in the most recent accident of us, it was not my fault. It was actually that's not true. You were rear-ended too, so we were both rear-ended. But someone has gotten the most recent speeding ticket in our family, where she was doing 45 in a 30 zone. It was 30. All I know is she told me, she's like, yeah, I was going fast, but it was going down a steep hill, and it was more like I lost track of speed. It was going down, and the cop was waiting there. And then sure enough, like the next day, we were driving down the same road down the steep hill. That was just this little downgrade. And I was like, this is the steep hill? She's like, yes. But, she's, we're both pretty safe drivers, but, yeah. Yes. I worked in law enforcement when I was in college. I worked for the San Francisco State Police Department. I was a vehicle maintenance officer's assistant. I was a community service officer for a year before my toe was fractured and I had to drop out, and then moved into working with middle school ministries in my church back home. So I've definitely been around, a lot of law enforcement and police, and so driving safely. I think that was a time where I started to drive a little bit safer, just because it was kind of like, at first I was like, I got to drive cop cars around, and so my average cruising speed on the freeway was like 90, and of course, you hit a couple straightaways and be like, I want to see how fast this baby can go. And then I realized I was paid by the hour, and I didn't want to get places that quickly. So then it was fun just to drive really slow on the freeway and create traffic, because people don't want to pass a slow-moving cop car, right? Because then they're like, is my speedometer broken? What's going on here? Are they just trying to bait me, into it? So that was when I kind of started to slow down. It's like, I'm going to represent, because I was also in college, I was a younger man.
Go ahead.
Okay, you had me until the coffee. If it isn't black without anything in it, I don't know that you can be here on a Sunday.
Okay, getting back to a little more practical stuff. We've all heard of your inexperience as a lead pastor. What do you see as your, how are you going to grow in that? I mean, self-taught, or this is what it is, and
There's going to be some bumps and bruises of learning along the way, that's for certain, and I would hopefully you'll be gracious with me in that. Jim, who's the senior pastor of our current church, it's very much asked. He's like, I would like to help mentor you in doing that. There's another gentleman at a church here in Auburn that has offered the same. I've definitely, one of the things, I don't know if we'll call it a strength as well. I very much I learn well from others. We joke that the Sidley way of learning is the hard way. That's the way we like to learn it, is the hard way. And that's the joke, because it's not true. Like, I like to heed people's advice. I like to learn from people's mistakes that they've made, they want to share with me. And so those types of things, I want to glean as many of those things as I can through that and what that looks like. So yes, definitely seeking out some mentorship on help and like what this looks like. If that exists also from here, from within inside the body, a support on the elders, leaning on you guys for experience and what else is here within the church body locally. I will be leaning into that as well. Follow up.
How comfortable are you with counseling adults and also counseling a woman? Would you make sure and have Emily with you or another woman?
Ooh. I'm comfortable counseling adults. When I was working at Life Point, one of the things, with people coming up to me and having questions of counseling, one of the things that it was an area I felt lacking in. And so I actually got a job. The reason I am a custodian now, or was my most recent profession, was because I got a job at St. Martin's University down in Olympia, Lacey. Because if you worked there, you could take classes for free. You could get a free education. So I wanted a master's in counseling psychology, because I wanted a little bit more of that background in the counseling side of things. So I did not finish that program because I had to move from there to the school district. But I took, I think, 6 or 7 classes under my belt. A lot of them, one of them dealing with substance abuse and counseling in that regards, marriage counseling, family dynamics. There's a lot to the family system, as you can watch at this table. It's one of those things that those things happen. As far as counseling women, that's one of those things where I would want either Emily present or it being on a campus where the door is open and there are other people around. And that's one of those things where I go, I'm very good at drawing boundaries on those types of things. And that's where I go, I don't want there to be a possible implication of any impropriety on my side or her side, and protect both of our honors. So.
Okay, here you go, Bill.
Hi, Matt. Emily, hello. There are a lot of kids here, and I actually have 2 questions. One, your classes you most recently took in counseling and whatnot, those were before you were doing youth work in California, Southern California?
No, that was, the classes that I took were once we had moved up here.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
Got it. Okay. So you had some exposure with things like that. And with kids and everything, my second question would be, do you have right now an idea of a way to start a youth program through here? And what would that start to look like?
Well, that's where I go. I'm bringing 3 kids with me, right? So children's ministry, we have 3.
Force ministry, huh?
Exactly, and that's where I go. You're going to actually hear a little bit about this tomorrow in the sermon as well, because a children's ministry is one of the things where I go, if we want to be a thriving church, if we want to be a church that is carrying on the faith, not just in this generation, but in future generations, we have to be invested in our children. And we will be invested in our children. And there I go. Right now, I think that would probably start out with, I'm gonna help find some teachers, right? Those that are interested and are passionate about teaching young people of all ages. But right now, type of thing, I go, it'll probably start out with a combined class. Like maybe if we have babies separate, but then kindergarten through, sixth grade. Am I vacuuming after today? Who's vacuuming after today? We're blowing salt and pepper all over off the table onto the floor.
We're good.
But that's where I go. That will be one of the big things where I go, in my mind, we're family here, we're talking about, I want to have something like that in place that is rocking and rolling when Easter starts. When we hit Easter and we're inviting people and saying, hey, you guys want to come check out our church? You want to come worship with us and the resurrection of Jesus? There will be something that is not like we just started it, but is starting to become a little oiled and is rolling a little bit smoother by the time Easter runs around. Just because I go, our children are very important. And so how will we do it? I'm going to find teachers. I'm going to help find them, and that's where I go. If you're already having that inkling inside where you know who you are, we're going to want to talk and meet with you and see what your gifting is, because my gifting is not being in their age range classrooms. I can tell you that much. We taught over our time in Life Point, I taught 5th grade, 4th grade, 2nd grade, middle school, high school. I think you spent some time in the infant classes. Babies are babies. That's a little different, right? But I go, it's just, But those age ranges, I go, it is a gifting if you enjoy teaching those age ranges. And we want you to teach in them. So, because,
I'm not done with this back table.
No.
Sorry. Here you go, Wendy.
Hello, welcome. My question is, we have people who can't attend church due to medical reasons. How do you see yourself reaching those members or non-members, just attenders?
We have people online, and that's where I go, the importance of keeping what we're doing online. I'd want to know how are they plugged in now? How do we know that they're just watching online and not here? I don't know what we have as far as kind of the assimilation follow-up with people on Sunday built in right now. But that's something that we'd want to see. All right, we're averaging 12 viewers on YouTube every Sunday. How do we start interacting with the YouTube chat during it and find out who they are? Who are these people, and be able to reach out to them and then follow up with them and meet with them if we can during the week or once a month, or what is their story? It sounds like there might be someone in the congregation currently that we know of, and there might be others that we don't. And that's a piece that I think a lot of churches don't have online, up and running yet. A lot of churches now are just in the age of, hey, we're streaming online, so we're good. And I go, well, if we can be streaming online, but at the same time, we can be reaching out online and interacting online to find out, what their needs are. Because if they can't come to the building and there's, valid reasons for it, we have to go find them. We have to go to them. So, and at the beginning, that's definitely going to fall on my shoulders. That's for certain. Is there someone right now during the live stream on YouTube that interacts with chat?
Okay, somebody else, or I'll pick on you, and I'll give you the mic.
John was shaking his head up there like he has a question.
You want me to come up and give you the mic, or can you just give it to us? Okay.
Has your dad ever worked for George Lucas?
Yes, that is correct. My father worked in the visual effects industry for 10 plus years and worked on Star Wars and a lot of stuff. So, yes, he did. John and I are friends on Facebook now. He's stalking me. He's stalking me.
Okay, I don't want there to be a lull, that's for sure. So think of those questions when I come over to you so that you're prepared for something. I know I'm going to go home and get a scolding, but here's my wife.
Uh-oh. Well, I've been thinking just to be prepared. One thing I feel like our church has lacked is structure. Do you have some thoughts on how to take a church that has not had a lot of structure to try and put those boundaries in?
And this is one of the things that I thought was interesting, how I mentioned with the church planters assessment, where they're like, would you be interested in being part of a church if you didn't have to, if we took the planting out of it? And there's already a little bit of structure in place. And I go, from what I've seen at McMicken, I feel that that's kind of a similar opportunity where this isn't a church plant. You've been here for a long time, but there's some things we kind of need to, get doing regularly. Because right now, from, coming in, it's like, all right, we have Sunday morning that's rolling, with sermon and with worship. And I go, well, what else are we doing right now? And that's where I go. So we kind of have some bare bones basics that are in place, but what else do we want to put in place? What else do we want to structure? Because and they talk about the infamous programs, putting programs in place and things that we run regularly. I'd like to see small groups running regularly during the week for adults to participate in, so if you're a member of McMicken, this is me I'm spitballing kind of on your question here too, as I go, I want to ask you, if you're a member, you're attending on Sunday, you're a participant, right? You're serving in some capacity, involved in a small group. Now, you run into difficulties with, service and attendance when there's only one service, right? If you're back in the back teaching kids and we only have 1 hour, it makes it difficult. And that's where I go. But, being involved in a small group and then being involved in kind of like one area of ministry or the things that I don't want to like overburden you with a lot of things that you're expected to attend. And that's where I go. One of my friends that I really got to know, he referred to it as, because we were at the church all the time when I worked there, and he's just like, I feel like we're just the toys hanging out in the toy box and not like doing anything and not like going out and being used. And that's where I go, I want you to feel comfortable, signing up to be on the city softball league and participating in that and not be like, well, it's, can I do this, or is this a waste of my time, or what is this? Like, no, you can go get to know people on your softball team and play softball with them, and then hopefully through your relationship with Jesus Christ, you're going to have an opportunity to share with some of them about what he's doing in your life on your softball team. And that's where I go, I would definitely be slow. I would say I'd be slow to bring those things online. I think for the adults, small groups would be, this is me just thinking out loud here, I'm sharing with you my ideas, is bringing small groups online. This would be one of the first pieces that I'd like to bring online. And you're going to hear about it on Sunday. We have a lot of clothes that are still hanging out back here at the clothing bank. I'd want to bring that online, quickly as far as a way for us to serve our community right now. And then we'll brainstorm some ideas of some other things that we want to do. But that's where I go. I don't want to create too many things that ask us to do too many things that we don't get to interact with our neighbors. We don't get to interact with people. So that's the balance in which that I will want to be working with as we're, adding pieces kind of to the puzzle of what we're going to be about as a church. What are we going to prioritize and put our time and energy into? But that is a very good question. I will still be thinking about this one some more.
I'm going to go to our emerging young adults, So first, I'll start here. I know you have a question of some sort, anything about music or anything else. Here you go.
I do not have one.
He wants to know, do you work on your own cars?
Negative. I do not work on my own car. I do not change my own oil. I was once the vehicle maintenance officer's assistant. My job was to take the car to the shop where they fixed it. And that's about the extent of car maintenance that I do.
So your car isn't raised up. It doesn't have stacks.
And I had a 66 Ford Mustang when I was in high school, and I didn't work on that either. Like, I'd open the hood and look at it and be like, this is cool. But I didn't work on it. Yeah. So I was a poser with my nice classic car.
Okay, I'm still going to those young adults that are emerging because as we recognize, children are our future. So I'll start with you, Seth, then.
All right.
really been wondering ever since you mentioned that you play a lot of games. What games exactly? What video games? Can we get like a rundown?
A list would Call of Duty. Anything Call of Duty is in there. Madden. I do not do Fortnite. I do not do Minecraft. So
Minecraft.
because those are like what little kids play.
Minecraft?
Yeah.
Okay.
If I wanted to build something, I'd go build it in real life, which, as we pointed out with my car, I don't build like on cars and stuff in real life with that, no. I just don't want to go mining virtual dirt to like build other virtual things. Like, no, thank you. And so, yeah, those are the big ones, you know, and that's where I go. I normally am a person that sticks to one game for like a long time. Like, I'll play that game for years and then move on to something else.
Okay, I'm going to switch up again. Roy, it's your turn. You got to have a question. Yeah.
I couldn't think of anything yet.
Well, okay.
Bill's got another one.
All right.
There we go. Saved by Bill.
That's all right. Think of one.
What's your what kind of music do you listen to? Did that already get asked?
No. I don't know if I have. Right now, I my wife already is bugging me about it. I listen. I'm the guy that when I pick a song, I put it on repeat and listen to the same song for like 5 hours. And right now, the song that it's like my getting things done song. It's my working song right now. It is Maria. I just met a girl named Maria, and suddenly I found how wonderful a sound can be. Maria. That's my song right now. That was for you, Bill. Woo. My children hate that song. My daughter will walk around the house. We went to Monster Jam at the Tacoma Dome a couple weeks ago. So we bought ear protection. My daughter, I'll be doing dishes, listening to this song, singing along. She'll come walking through to get some in the kitchen with her ear muffs on because she doesn't want to hear it anymore. So.
You guys are slinking away, so you get to choose. I don't care which one of you ask a question, but one of you need to ask a question. Or both.
Bill took my question. Emily, what is your preferred type of music?
Well, I think Josh wants to share his favorite song first.
Josh?
Maria. I just met a girl named Rebecca.
Thank you, son.
Well, I do like West Side Story too, but I tend to listen to a lot of like the older Christian music from when I was young, like DC Talk, Newsboys, Jars of Clay, like that era.
Striper.
Those are kind of my favorites.
What's Striper?
Yeah.
Okay, you'd have to be from the 80s, and you'd have to be somebody that listened to...
Yeah, I was a little bit past that.
Yeah.
But I also like musicals. I like... I'm not really that picky, to be honest. So I like music in general.
What is the rest of your guys' musical talents?
I just demonstrated mine.
That's what made me think of the question.
I can play flute. I played flute all the way from 5th grade through college. I don't play a whole lot these days because I just don't have a reason to, but I know how to play flute. I like to play piano, but I also haven't played that much since high school. So I'm very rusty and out of practice there, but I enjoy playing music. My mother is a music teacher, and so I grew up surrounded by music. Even still, you know, we went down for Christmas down to California, and she arranged for me to play a flute duet with her while we were down there at their church. So that's I pretty much play now when my mom's around because she still encourages me to, and I enjoy it. I just don't put in the time to practice because I have other things going on. So. But yeah, I played flute, handbells, piano. I was in choirs, so I've been around music a lot, but I like to be in groups usually. I don't like to do solos, but yeah.
I played the violin when I was younger, all the way through elementary and middle school. And in middle school, I stopped because I wanted to do other things. That, and I didn't like practicing. And I think I was still kind of cute and not sounding good in middle school and high school. It didn't seem like that was going to work. So I played sports instead.
Okay, we're just about done. Is there, okay. I know that Cindy wants to, before I get to you, yet you do want to know this, Cindy. You need to ask about his sports affiliation.
I know. This is a balance that I have to come up with for myself. But do you like, you said you were an athlete, so what sports did you play, and what do you enjoy watching now?
I played soccer my whole life growing up, and I did baseball 1 year, and I don't know why I didn't continue with it because I was really good at it. Like the season that I played, like my batting average was over 800, and they wanted me to continue playing, but after 1 year I was just done. So I think I had reached the pinnacle and was just retired on top. But I did soccer, and then I did soccer in high school, and then I only did 2 years of soccer in high school, and then I did volleyball all 4 years in high school. I like volleyball. In California, boys volleyball, like all the schools had it, which here it doesn't seem to be that way. And then I took tennis in college because tennis was the other sport that I was like, if I could have been a dual sport or tri-sport athlete, I would have preferred just doing volleyball and tennis in high school, but tennis was at the same time as volleyball, which was annoying. And now, like, I wanted to play football because I timed myself, like when I was in high school, and even in college, I ran a 4.5 40 at my weight. And it was one of those things, I'm very fast for a man of my size. And I always wanted to play football, and so when the opportunity came around in high school, my parents were like, you can play, but we're not going to pay for it. So you have to get the money yourself, which was their way of saying, no, you can't play. Because I didn't have a job and I didn't have any money. And looking back on that, like the style of coaching that comes with football, like when you watch football and see football, I would not have responded well to football style coaching. So I think my parents were definitely a little wise in me not playing.
Dub, dub, dub.
Dub, dub, dub. But I love watching football. Baseball now for me, like if I'm following sports, baseball is kind of long. And so playoffs are important, but it's like 162 games or whatever. It's too long. I like watching football. And yes, I am a Cleveland Browns fan. I am not a Seahawks fan. I'm not a Niners fan. I'm not a Raiders fan. Right? I am a Cleveland Browns fan. So I have adopted the Seahawks as my NFC team that I will root for in any circumstance as long as they're not playing the Browns. Which
doesn't happen very often.
Doesn't happen very often. I was at the game the last time the Browns came to town. I was in the second row behind the Browns bench with my dad, and Emily wasn't there. My dad took her ticket because she was pregnant with which one? This one? That one? I don't remember how long ago it was. Yeah, one of these two. And she didn't want to, stand for the whole game because basically when you go to a Seahawks game, you're standing basically the whole time. And you're not actually sitting in the expensive seat you just paid for. So, yeah, I was there, and I was rooting for Johnny Manziel when he got his touchdown on the opening drive, and we never scored again.
Yeah.
And Seattle blew us out, but I had a good time.
So did your dad come from Cleveland then, or how did you pick on them?
My mom's family is from Ohio.
Oh, okay.
And so my grandfather, he is a graduate of The Ohio State University, and he rooted for everything from Cleveland. And my parents don't care about sports at all. So, like, growing up, like the only thing that in my household that we ever rooted for was the Cleveland Browns, the Indians, and the Cavaliers, all from Cleveland, right? And so it just kind of stuck. And then I had a lot of friends that were Niners fans that teased me, so I don't have a love for the Niners, which aids me in being around Seahawks fans now. So, yes, but Emily has some sports allegiances as well.
Okay.
Yes, I like baseball. So I'm the one that's always turning baseball on at our house. But yeah, I grew up playing softball as well. I did crew in college. I like rowing. And then, yeah, I'm a big San Francisco Giants fan. That's my team. But then I also grew up watching football, but my dad took me to a lot of college games, so I'm a big UC Berkeley fan. But, and I grew up in a Niners house.
Dup, dup.
But fortunately, that allegiance wasn't as strong, so I converted to being a Browns fan very easily. So, but yeah, so I also like football and baseball.
Dup, dup, bup.
And I really like watching Olympics. I make my family watch the Olympics.
I'm done with figure skating, watching figure skating, that's for certain. Nathan Chen was very good. He was very good.
I have a really nice question for you, which I'm sure the youth would really like an answer. You are a youth pastor, and your wife has helped you in the interviews. The youth here are pretty dedicated and hardworking. What can you do to help these young people along, since they are our future, especially for the church?
Just thinking, as we're talking about youth now, I'm thinking middle school and high school. And that's one of those things that in challenging them in that age is where in school that they've now been challenged with thinking for themselves. Like a lot of times through the elementary school age, you're learning things, you're regurgitating information, you're learning things. And a lot of it is developmentally as well, as you've reached that age that you're really starting to think about, what do you think about this? So your book report isn't no longer tell me what the book was about. What did you think about the book? And for them at that age, getting them to start thinking about that and then identifying it and having their faith be their own and not attached to their parents and not attached to other people, that it is theirs and their own and it's their identity. And that comes with a lot of like what we teach from up front, but then also what opportunities that we give them. Opportunities for them to serve. I definitely want to make sure that we have the youth involved and are thought about in our planning for events that we do as adults. Because bridging the gap also when, kids graduate and go on from high school into college, churches historically lose huge numbers of youth when they do that. And one of the things that I think that we can do to bridge that we've tried doing at Life Point and done it somewhat successfully, is that they are members of our congregation now. And that they're thought about now when we're planning events. It's not just like the youth are an afterthought where I go, man, we didn't think about how we were going to do X. And, yes, let's ask the youth to do it. Because we have them and we didn't think about it. I don't want that to be like our way of utilizing youth. I want them to be a part of it's on the table from the beginning when we're thinking about the events that we plan and do. And having a small group for them to get to hang out amongst themselves and interact with their peers, the ones that they're going through the fire with right now. When I first toured through the room over there, like the red and white room with the glass broken window on it, right? Has it been fixed yet? I don't even know. But there was the one broken window. And it was like you go into that room, and it's like I could see this as being like the youth room, the cool spot that you get to go and get away a little bit from the parents and the older people, right? And hang out amongst themselves. So yes, and that's where I go. Them and identifying their faith and having it be their own is one of the biggest things for that age. That I would want to focus on, at least from my experience through going through that, is helping that be driven home. Now I'm saying
Okay. This is your opportunity. You're not going to have the same opportunity tomorrow.
Can I jump in too?
Yes,
I was also
you
going to
may.
say one thing we've talked about too is just providing opportunities for youth to hang out together as well. Whether that's they come over to our house sometimes and play some games. We just get to know them as well apart from their parents, so that there are opportunities where they can be part of the church as a whole, but also have times to be independently just youth.
When can I ship them?
We'll have to talk about that.
we're not combining one.
Oh. Big butt gun.
Well, how about you, Don? You're doing the future of our parsonage and kitchen. Do you have a burning question at all, or some wisdom? I know you got lots of wisdom because I've been a reciprocate of that, but here's a mic.
After this meeting, I would like you guys to come over and we can go over what we're doing there. And then I've got some vinyl and the cabinets, and we can make some selections.
We can do that. We're good at that.
That's about all I have.
It's not on the schedule. Okay, no. Okay, so I just want to give you an opportunity. That's why I tried to select everybody within the church a little bit. If I put you on the spot, I'm sorry. If you want an opportunity, take it now. Tomorrow will be a different format, a different approach. But this is, we're the church, it's us. So we want to make sure that you feel satisfied and we don't have a time frame. Anyone else? In the balcony?
I might ask Matt, how do you select the topics of your messages? And would it be follow a theme for a while, or do you see what's going on around, or book by book, or how would you have messages selected?
A very good question. It's one of those ones I prefer going book by book. It's one of those things that's the big question where I go, so I've told Michael, like, if this vote goes right, I can start March 1, and already I go, there's 7 weeks between now, then, and Easter. Initially starting out, what I'd like to do, it'd be more topical here initially, and that's been kind of on the advice of the current senior pastor of our church, where he said, Matt, I want you to, you need to just share your heart with people for the first few weeks, and that's where I go, which always going to be sharing my heart, but it's one of those things. But right now, as we're getting to know each other some more, I want to share sermons, which you're going to get a little bit of a dose tomorrow, about, things that are important to me, that I'm passionate about. And, so I think we'll have a few more weeks of that. And then, because I listen to Alistair Begg's Truth for Life podcast on a regular basis. And, I enjoy his thing where, he goes through the Bible and, people ask, well, when are you going to talk about this? When are you going to talk about that? And he's like, well, if we go through the whole thing, eventually we'll have covered everything. It's just, it might take a while. And that's where I go, I think I would prefer going through books. Yes, it could be a time or a season that we need to take a few weeks and talk about this, because of something that's going on in the life of our church, or something that's prominent that's coming up in society, or something that's happening that, God needs to speak directly to this. But in my mind right now, I kind of have an idea of a possible kind of a rotation of basically where we go with a letter, an Old Testament book, gospel, letter, Old Testament book, gospel, and Acts kind of being included and kind of going through a rotation. So it's one of those things that's kind of my first thoughts as I'm putting it, where I go, but at the same time, I've never put that into practice, where I go, well, how long would it take us to do this? And, theoretically, how quickly or how thoroughly could we go through, like on that plan, could we cover basically the entire Bible? If you were here for 3 years, attending on Sunday morning, you have heard, we've preached and we've covered the entire Bible in 3 years. I've heard of other churches that have been able to do it in 2. I don't know how long their services are, but, that's where I go, 2 years for just, was it 52 weeks in a year, 52 Sundays. I go, man, that's pretty intense. Yeah. So, and that's where I go. That's more what I'm leaning towards more, is going through books. Because for my personal study, I like to dwell in a book. And I've shared this with kind of the leadership team. And just I like dwelling in a book because for my personal kind of devotional style, it's like I'll just read, right? I'll just take however much time I have. I got 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, however much I have, and I'm just going to read, and I'm just reading it. And I'm not necessarily reading it for comprehension. I'm just reading it. And I'm going to go as far as I can. Next day, I'm going to pick up where I left, and I'm going to read it again. Then when I get to the end, I'm going back to the beginning, and I'm going through it again. And when you kind of just go through it constantly, over a time, then you come to the point where you can't get through the day without the Lord bringing His word that you've been reading to mind. And the circumstances and the things that you're going through, it comes to life. Because I used to do kind of a set reading plan, and I was reading for this because, just to be honest, I wanted to be super holy and say I'd read through the Bible X number of times in my life, right? And so I'd have my reading plans that I'd check off with, but and that's where I go. This style that I'd adopted, this was when I was a middle school intern, had adopted kind of more of this style of just literally soaking in a book for a good chunk of time is the method that I like, and that's where I go. And then with that being kind of attached to, if we went through that book for the sermon series, we could be soaking in that. So that's kind of my thoughts with that. But at the same time, I'm going to get down and meet with the elders and see what they think. Yep. So.
That was a yes vote.
Yeah.
If you have a burning desire, raise your hand now, please. Okay, good. So I'd like to recognize the search team. They've been working on your behalf since tax day, since April 15th, and that's when we started. And we actually, the elders behind the scene, began even before that. So it's been a long haul. Tomorrow, you're going to have an opportunity to question them and to have, before the vote, after we have Matthew presents the word and preaches to you and shepherds us. So just be thinking about those questions, those things that you want to know. We want to be open, transparent, and honest, open, and transparent, so that we can, that the church at large can be governed and move with the Spirit. That's our hope. I mean, I told you when we began this with the search team that if we seek after the kingdom, everything else will fall in place. So let me close. Unless somebody has a question, I'll open it. Still, you have 1 second. Okay. With that said, please bow. Dear Heavenly Father, no matter what the situation is, you are always and completely and always will be in control. And you're working on our behalf as a church behind the scenes, even before we know the needs that we have, and you will meet them. It isn't necessarily the way we would have done it, but it is your way. Help us to be obedient. Help us to be loving. Help us to be kind as Matthew is presented to the church. And help us to embrace your will and to do your work with our hands and our feet. In Christ's holy name, amen. All right, thanks. I know you guys got drilled. Do you usually bring your children to interviews?
No.
I'm just curious. Because that was, an interview's challenging in itself. And yeah, so, and you're a play place.
I'm about to say, yeah, it's parent life. And that's right.
Yes.
Apparently, we will be heading over to the parsonage to answer some questions over there about that. If you have any other questions that you want to run over there, we'll be over there for a little bit. And then I think I'm on the docket to meet with John and talk with him for a little bit here too. So I'll be lingering around. If you think of something else and you want to come ask me, that by all means. By all means.
Hey, one last thing. If you could help Wendy and everybody